I'm a project manager for an educational publisher called Open School BC. And we're housed within the Ministry of Education, but we operate as a cost recovery organization, which means that we don't receive any seed funding from the ministry. So we operate as a business. We're a government business, government corporation, if you like. And we're in the business of developing courses. So we develop print-based courses and we develop online courses. And the reason that I've ended up working on MarketSafe has a lot to do with some of the courses that we've developed in the past. So Open School BC has a Food Safe Level 1 online training available. We also have a Food Safe Level 2 online. And more recently, I was involved in the development of a Food Safe Level 1 refresher course. So what's happening with Food Safe Level 1 is that there's a new requirement that if that after 5 years, your Food Safe Level 1 certification you need to have a recert in order to continue on having that certification. So the refresher course is just a shorter version of Food Safe Level 1 that covers a lot of the most important concepts, and it's offered online as well. So on the basis of the work I did with the Food Safe Level 1 refresher, I was asked by our sponsor on that project, which is the Food Safe Secretariat, if we could also be involved in developing a MarketSafe online course. So this is Nanette Plant. She works out of Camosun College in the Special Projects Office, but she's also the coordinator of the Food Safe Secretariat. So she's been behind a lot of the good work that we've been involved with. And the reason that we would like to deliver MarketSafe in an online format is because a certain number of people don't have easy access to the course. So right now it's offered in a kind of a hit and miss manner. That is to say, the course is only offered infrequently in different jurisdictions, and a lot of that depends on whether or not there are staff who are qualified to train or to do the training, but also it depends on enrollment. So if you don't have enough people to enroll for the course, obviously, it's more difficult to deliver. And a lot of the people who are taking the course are busy on the farm, or maybe they live far away from where the training is being offered. So offering MarketSafe online will be one way for them to be able to access those training materials and to work through that course content on their own time. So right now, MarketSafe exists as a face-to-face training. There is a participant workbook that is issued to all of the people involved in the course, and the workbook was largely the basis for the content that we developed for the online course. However, what we've done is we've enhanced that content, and also some of the content has been revised on the basis of a review that was conducted by the MarketSafe Steering Committee. So Elizabeth Quinn, among others, was involved in reviewing the early stages of that course. We did what's called an instructional design planning session, where we bring together subject matter experts, so instructors and other stakeholders involved in the project, namely the Food Safe Secretariat, as well as a representative of the BC Centre for Disease Control and an environmental health officer who is actually here. Some of you may know him, Kira Cordner. He has been reviewing our content as well. So we're getting lots of feedback on to ensure that the information we're presenting is sound. And then we're supplementing that with video and new artwork and photographs as well, just to try and make the course a little bit more interesting to the end user. Yes?
I'm very new to this,
yes.
So forgive the very basic question, but is MarketSafe a course, or is it like an umbrella term that Food Safe falls under?
It's a course.
It is, okay.
It's a food safety awareness course. It's designed for, and I'll get to that slide in a moment.
Okay.
Or, no, don't be sorry, that's fine. Actually, maybe we can move forward with the slides. We'll go to the next one.
I'm just trying to get context
Yeah.
on what you're saying.
Yeah. So here's the course objective. This is what MarketSafe is all about: to increase awareness and knowledge of food safety and safe food handling procedures for farmers, market vendors, market managers, farm gate vendors, home, kitchen, small-scale food processors, and others who may make, bake, or produce food products for public consumption outside of regulated food service establishments. So the course is designed specifically for farmers markets. In terms of scope, it's not as broad as food safe. Some of the same fundamental concepts are covered off because food safety awareness, no matter where you are, has some of those commonalities that you're going to see between food safe and MarketSafe. But the emphasis in MarketSafe has a lot to do with ensuring that from the preliminary stages of preparing food in a home kitchen all the way up to transport and display, and I was going to say something else, but the preservation of your foods while you're at the market, and also the sampling. Yeah, that's all built into the process. So those are the main components of the course, if you like, at a high level. So the emphasis within food safe tends to gear more towards the hospitality sector. So food servers in different types of establishments. Maybe we're talking about seniors' homes or restaurants or hotels, but anyone who's serving food or working in a kitchen must have their food safe level 1 certification. My understanding is that there are some market managers who have built in the requirement to have MarketSafe certification into the policy handbook for the market as a means to ensure that all of the market vendors who are at the market have at least been exposed to the basics of food safety awareness, specifically within the context of a farmer's market. And my understanding is also that it's at least possible that some insurers will look at that and it may affect your insurance policy. I can't tell you with certainty because someone told me a couple days ago that that was the case for choosing the home-based insurance. Like if you can become insured when you're vending at your market through your home insurance, they do they do require of you to have food safe level 1. I think there are some instances where MarketSafe may have a similar impact on your insurance packages, but I can't tell you for sure. That came from Annette Moore, who is an instructor, and she mentioned that when she was doing the level 1 course. So I do have my MarketSafe certification and my food safe level 1 certification, even though I haven't used it for anything. Although, of course, one of the byproducts of taking those courses is that you start to see the world a little bit differently. So, for example, last week we had a function at work. There are about probably 100 people. It was one of those big strategic initiatives where everyone was trying to figure out exactly how the work that we do aligns with the vision of the ministry. And afterwards, the coercion involved had to do with our getting lunch afterwards. And there are these big platters filled with sandwiches, all piled on top of one another, and people are just picking them off the plate. And I just, I see stuff like that, and it's like, oh God, we're all gonna die. I can't. So this is what happens when you start to become more well versed with the food safety awareness issues. Another example is, going to the grocery store, and even though the ground turkey is in a vacuum-packed, sealed package with a plastic bag over top of it, my wife put it on the top sort of shelf of the buggy, and there was produce underneath, and it's like, no, don't put it there. We're all gonna die. So these are things that happen. And hand washing, that's the other big one. So there's a lot of emphasis in the course on hand washing. What's the rule for hand washing? The guideline. Does anyone know? 2 minutes? 30 seconds minimum, right? So, I find myself in washrooms singing Happy Birthday out loud, right? People stare at me, but that's okay. And then, until I came here, and then the person next to me was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and I realized I was among my own people, right? Yeah. So, okay. So now that I've got all the jokes out of the way, is that food food safety is everyone's responsibility, right? So we ought not to blame or hold the EHO somehow responsible for not inspecting the market and pointing out things that could be improved, right? And essentially that is their job. I mean, my understanding is that there are a certain number of really important safeguards that could be put into place and which we don't find necessarily in farmers markets. And the idea is not that they're going to be like exercise some sort of punitive measure in order to shut down the market if they see that that's happening, but they might point it out to you and say, well, look, you know, this is potentially a problem, right? Go to the next slide. Yeah, so I've mentioned a little bit, I basically mentioned this. It's sponsored by the MarketSafe Steering Committee. We're trying to make the course more available for people who don't have easy access. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here's our target audience. So one of the things that we do at the very beginning of the course is we get all the stakeholders together, which I mentioned before, and we do what's called an instructional design plan. So we basically map out all the course components, the scope and sequence, the order within which we would like to see the information covered. We refer to the student handbook to see what to sort of contextualize where we'd like to see the information that's in the handbook in terms of the course itself. And then we develop a sort of a learner profile in order to get a sense of who our target audience is, not to single anyone out, but more just to understand the range of different types of people who may be taking this course. And this is what we came up with. So farm operators, backyard gardeners, young entrepreneurs, community garden cultivators, small home-based business operators, market managers, and event coordinators. So first, I went through the MarketSafe training in a one-day session with a few other people who are involved in Open School BC. The media coordinator was there. Our writer for the course was there as well. And then the next day, right afterwards, we had the instructional design planning session that I just mentioned. So then you develop this plan. It's basically just a big table. You break all the material down into different lesson topics. You align the lesson topics to learning outcomes. And then you figure out how you're going to deliver that material, whether it be through video, graphics, multimedia, text. And that table then gets reviewed by the stakeholders. So the steering committee, Elizabeth, BC Centre for Disease Control, Environmental Health Officer, and then they provide feedback. We incorporate the feedback into the instructional design plan, and then the writer begins to adapt the existing material to the online format. So sometimes that just that involves providing instructions to the learner to move forward through the content. You just need to contextualize the language a little bit differently when it's not a face-to-face course. You need to make sure that whatever important information you want to communicate is communicated up front, because there's a lot of informal learning that can happen in a face-to-face training. Maybe the instructor is talking about examples from his or her own life. Maybe they're answering questions in communication with the people who are involved in the class, but none of that's captured in the course content. So we try and consider all the different information that we want to include for the online course, since there is no instructor. So then simultaneous to that, we begin developing the multimedia and the graphics. And then once all of that has been developed, production technicians at Open School BC start to format that in an online format. And I'll show you some examples of what that looks like. And then we have a pilot. So I think some of you have signed up for the pilot, possibly. So we want to promote a culture of food safety in home kitchens, gate stalls, and farmers markets. Keep the messages in the course positive. So the goal is not to instill fear in everyone if they're not, following best practice, but we really want to encourage people to embrace a culture of food safety, no matter what their role is in the market. And we also wanted to include case studies that point to specific examples of where things have gone wrong, just to give people an idea of the scope and the scale of these issues when things do go sideways. Next. So we want to illustrate best practices. We try to represent different areas of the province, although our travel budget was somewhat limited, but we did want to sort of reflect a combination of urban and rural environments. And as I mentioned before, we want to promote the perception of environmental health officers as resources for low-risk, small-scale food processors, market managers, and market vendors. So here are the people whom we have featured in our videos. We've got interviews with market managers, we've got interviews with vendors, interviews with consumers, which you just saw, small-scale processors, so one of whom was filmed in her kitchen preparing, we have one gentleman who's preparing pesto, and someone else who is preparing some jams and jellies in her home kitchen. And then an interview with an environmental health officer. So here's a list of all the videos. If any of these pique your interest, we can take a look at them. Maybe I'll go through the whole list first and talk a little bit about the course content, and then we can go back to the videos if you have interest. So we've got one on baked goods, control measures, fresh produce, the home kitchen, prepared food, sampling. Next, please. Storage, hand washing. We saw this one, food safety concerns, the role of an EHO, why market food safety is important, working with a health authority. So here's the course structure. I think, did you ask earlier? Yeah. So high level, this is what the titles of the lesson content look like. There are 3 units. The first one is on the causes of foodborne illness. I believe in the first lesson we define low risk and high risk. Maybe I won't read them out. You can read through them yourselves, I think. Does anyone need more time, or should we move to the next slide? Okay. FATM stands for food, acid, time, temperature, oxygen, and moisture. Yeah. So there's just one lesson in the section on personal hygiene where you really try and reinforce information about hand washing, and in particular hand washing stations, which I would say is the greatest conspicuous absence in farmers markets. There are some studies, sort of internal studies, I think. I'm not certain they've been released to the public. They are getting published by the BC Centre for Disease Control. Well, actually, I don't think the Centre for Disease Control conducted the study, but they were involved in the study being conducted by some students who were, I think, in the master's program of health sciences or something. And they went out into markets, these people conducting the study, and I know there was a quote, I can even find it if you'd like, but that stated that within the 4 hours that they were at this one market, not once did they see anyone wash their hands. So I'm not saying this is happening at all markets at all times, but definitely we don't see a lot in the way of hand washing stations. And in terms of best practice, again, what you would want to see, and we've got some photos that illustrate this, but you'd want to see like a 10-gallon water container with a spigot, a pail underneath for excess water, a soap dispenser on the side, paper towels, and a garbage can. It's that simple. So we'll move on to the next unit. So food safety from gate to plate. This is where we talk a little bit about the cycle of transmission, and we talk about the various aspects of getting your samples from the home all the way to the market in a safe manner. And I think that's probably it. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that's it for the slides anyways. Now I'll just show you some samples of what the course looks like. I would defend taking the whole course, namely because what it means is that everyone's getting the same information, and they're not just understanding how the information relates to their own particular role, but also how that information relates to everyone else's role within the organization, right? So you get this kind of gestalt thing happening where everyone's on the same page. Everyone knows the same thing. I can see what you're doing and know whether you're following best practice or not, and you can do the same for me. So on that level, I think there's value. And I understand that as an employer, we're talking about a significant chunk of time, if it's a day, to take the course. But I also think that it's kind of like your insurance policy on some level. I mean, you have to believe in the concept, obviously, for that to be the case. But that's one way to look at it. No one's actually monitoring the extent to which you go through the information in the course. But there is a final exam at the end. Mm-hmm. I think it's got 40 multiple choice questions. And the expectation is that you achieve higher than 70%. Is that right? In order to pass the exam. If you are someone who is interested in the possibility of teaching MarketSafe later on, if you get a mark of 90% or higher, then that fulfills one of the criteria that environmental health officers will look at when you contact them about expressing interest in teaching the course. So there's also an expectation that you have some experience at markets and that you have a background in biological sciences to a certain extent, right? What's the course? Food biology, yeah. So there are other criteria, but this is one of them. And if you get higher than 90%, that would be reflected in your course mark, which is stored in a database so that health authorities can view that at a later date. Just so you know. For the people who are interested in potentially becoming an instructor later on, the exam is invigilated. So you need to contact an invigilator, and we have a list of people who have been identified as invigilators for the exam, and it's people who may work in libraries or various, usually public facilities. And then you arrange a date and you go and you write the exam under their supervision just to make sure that you're going about writing the exam honestly. So in that case, the cost of the course will be slightly higher, probably $25 or $30 higher than if you just took the online version without the invigilated exam.
Sorry, how much more?
Probably $25 or $30. So I'm not sure you heard the first part of that, but then if you wish to potentially become an instructor for MarketSafe later on, if you get 90% or higher on the final exam, then that's one of the criteria that environmental health officers will look at.
So you need 90%.